Good day everyone, I am Eliza Joyce H. Manzano and we are the Group 6 and we will discuss the Chapter 14 Introducing Evaluation. This chapter presents an introduction to the main types of evaluation and the methods that you can use to evaluate design prototypes and design concepts. The main goals of this chapter are to accomplish the following. First is, explain the key concept and terms used in evaluation. Next is, introduce a range of different types of evaluation methods. And it shows how different evaluation methods are used for different purposes at different stages of the design process and in different contexts of use. Next is, it shows how evaluation methods are mixed and modified to meet the demands of evaluating novel systems. Next is, it discusses some of the practical challenges of doing evaluation, and it illustrates those short case studies, how methods discussed in more depth in chapters 8, 9, and 10 are used in evaluation, and describe some methods that are specific to evaluation. Lastly, it provides an overview of methods that are discussed in detail in the next two chapters. Why, what, where, and when to evaluate. Evaluation is integral to the design process. It involves collecting and analyzing data about users or potential users' experience. When interacting with a design artifact such as screen sketch, prototype, app, computer system, or component of a computer system, a central goal of evaluation is to improve the artifact's design. Evaluation focuses on both the usability of the system, that is how easy it is to learn and to use, and on the user's experience when interacting with it, for example, how satisfying, enjoyable, or motivating the interaction is. Conducting evaluation involves understanding not only why evaluation is important, but also what aspects to evaluate, where evaluation should take place, and when to evaluate. The first one is why evaluate. To check users' requirements and confirm that users can utilize the product and that they like it. User experience involves all aspects of the user's interaction with the product. Nowadays, users expect much more than just a usable system. They also look for a pleasing and engaging experience from more products. Simplicity and elegance are valued so that the product is a joy to own and use. Next is what to evaluate. A conceptual model, early and subsequent prototypes of a new system, more complete prototypes, and a prototype to compare with competitors' products. What to evaluate ranges from low-tech prototypes to complete systems, from a particular screen function to the whole workflow, and from aesthetic design to safety features. Developers of a new web browser may want to know whether users find items faster with their product, and developers of an ambient display may be interested in whether it changes people's behavior. Game app developers will want to know how engaging and fun their games are compared with those of their competitors, and how long users will play them. Different types of evaluation will be needed depending on the type of product, the prototype or design concept, and the value of the evaluation to the designers, developers, and users. In the end, the main criteria are whether the design does what the user needs and want it to do. What that is, will they use it? Next is where to evaluate. In natural, in the wild, and laboratory settings. Where evaluation takes place depends on what is being evaluated. Some characteristics such as web accessibility are generally evaluated in a lab because it provides the control necessary to investigate systematically whether all of the requirements are met. This is also true for design choices such as choosing the size and layout of keys for a small handheld device for playing games. When to evaluate. Throughout design, finished products can be evaluated to collect information to inform new products. The stage in the product life cycle when evaluation takes place depends on the type of product and the development process being followed. For example, the product being developed could be a new concept or it could be an upgrade to an existing product. It could also be a product in a rapidly changing market that needs to be evaluated to see how well the design meets current and predicted market needs. If the product is new, then considerable time is usually invested in market research and discovering user requirements. Once these requirements have been established, they are used to create initial sketches, a storyboard, a series of screen, or a prototype of the design ideas. These are then evaluated to see whether the designers have interpreted the user requirements correctly and embodied them in their design appropriately. The design will be modified according to the evaluation feedback and new prototypes developed and subsequently evaluated.
Hi, I am John Michael Quilates and I'm here to continue the report, Chapter 14, about why do we need to evaluate. Bruce Tognazzini tells you why you need to evaluate. Iterative design with its repeating cycle of design and testing is the only validated methodology in existence that will consistently produce successful results. If you don't have user testing as an integral part of your design process, you are going to throw buckets of money down the drain. So, meaning, the single best indicators as to the overall competence of an interaction design team is their plan for user testing. If you are presented with no plan or a sort of value and will eventually do some user testing, you may want to back off and look at other resources. On the other hand, you are given a proposal outlining repeated design and test cycles. You are dealing with people who know exactly what they are doing. So, what to evaluate? Iterative design and evaluation is a continuous process that examines early ideas for a conceptual model, early prototypes of the new systems, more complete prototypes, and existing systems. Evaluation can be free-form or task-based, user-based or expert-based, and structured or unstructured. Types of evaluation: controlled settings, natural settings, and any settings. Controlled settings involving users defines evaluation schemes where users' activities are controlled in some way with the end goal of testing a hypothesis and gathering data regarding certain behaviors. This category of evaluation encompasses most of the traditional defined experiments used in modern scientific studies, as well as other non-traditional methodologies such as living labs. Uh, Natural settings involved users constitutes evaluation schemes where there is little or no control placed on the scope of user activity and aims to collect different types of data regarding interaction with user interfaces. These types of studies are useful for activities such as helping to identify opportunities for new technology, establishing needs and requirements for a new design, facilitating the introduction of technology, and in informing the deployment of existing technologies in new contexts. The most common implementation of this evaluation sim is the field study. Next is any settings not involving users are evaluation schemes that require no user involvement where researchers predict expected interface interactions using methods such as an analytic, walkthrough and models. Living labs. People's use of technology in their everyday lives can be evaluated in living labs. Such evaluations are too difficult to do in a usability lab. An early example was the Aware Home that was embedded with a complex network of sensors and audio-video recording devices. Living labs continued. More recent examples include wall blocks and cities that house hundreds of people. For example, Verma et al. Research in Switzerland. Many citizen science projects can also be thought of as living labs. This example illustrates how the concept of a lab is changing to include other spaces where people's use of technology can be studied in realistic environments. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. My name is Tenerjan F. Posalda, and today I'm reporting about evaluation case study. But first, we need to know what is a case study. Case study as an evaluation method is a means of learning about a complex instance based on a comprehensive understanding of that instance obtained through extensive description and analysis of that instance taken as a whole and in its context. A classic experimental investigation into the physiological responses of players of a computer game. An ethnographic study of visitors at the Royal Highland Show in which participants are directed and tracked using a mobile phone app. Crowdsourcing in which opinions and reactions of volunteers, for example, from the crowd, inform technological evaluation. Physiological measures were used. This could be anything such as heart rate, skin conductance, skin temperature, cortisol level, palmar sweat, and eye tracking. Players were more engaged when playing against another person than when playing against a computer. Why was the physiological data collected normalized? By taking a look at the picture, you would tell that both of them are enjoying the game when they're against another person, unlike playing against a computer. This goes to show how much of a difference can it make when it comes to playing against another player versus an artificial intelligence. Example of physiological data. A participant's skin response when scoring a goal against a friend A and another participant's response when engaging in a hockey fight against a friend versus against the computer B. As you can see, that playing with another person rather than a computer would make scoring the goal even more satisfying. You would also tell that the time it takes for them to react has increased on a larger scale when fighting against their friend rather than fighting against a computer.
Hello, my name is Marlon Vincent Galang, and I'm here to report for Group 6. Etnabat app is at the Royal Highland Show. The Etnabat directed Billy to a particular place, Aberdeenshire village. Next, Etnabat asks what's going on. The screen shows 5 of the experience buttons, from which Billy needs to select a response. Experience responses submitted in Etnabat. Out of the population, there were 17 responded that I tried something, 9 responded that they didn't like something, none responded that they experienced something, 20 responded that they learned something, 16 responded that they enjoyed something, and 8 responded that they bought something. Number of rewritten experience responses submitted by participants to the pre-established questions that Etnabot asked them about their responses. What did we learn from the case studies? how to observe users in the lab and in natural settings, how evaluators exert different levels of control in the lab and in natural settings and in crowdsourcing evaluation studies, use of different evaluation methods, how to develop different data collection and analysis techniques to evaluate user experience such as challenge and engagement, the ability to run experiments on the internet that are quick and inexpensive using crowdsourcing, how a large number of participants can be recruited using mechanical Turk. Evaluation methods. As shown in the table, there's observation in controlled settings and natural settings, asking users in controlled settings and natural settings, asking users in natural setting and without users, testing in controlled settings and modeling without users.
Good day everyone, my name is John Villanueva and I'm going to discuss the language of evaluation. First is analytics. The term data analytics refers to examine data sets to include the information they contain. Data analytic techniques enable you to take raw data, uncover patterns to extract variable insights from it. Today, many data analytics techniques are specialized systems and software that interrogate machine learning, algorithms, automation, and other capabilities. Next is analytical evaluation. An approach to evaluation that does not involve end user. Heuristic evaluation walkthroughs and modeling a form of analytical evaluation, where users are not directly involved. This approach includes various inspection methods and predictive models. Inspection methods typically involve an expert role-playing the end users for whom the product is designed, analyzing aspects of an interface, and identifying any potential usabilities problems by using a set of guidelines. The most well-known are heuristic evaluation and walkthroughs. Predictive models involve analyzing the various physical and mental operations that are needed to perform particular tasks at the interface and operational them in terms of quantitative measures. They predict the time it will make it will take a user to carry out the same task using different interfaces, enabling different design to be compared. For example, the optimal layout of the physical and software keys for a cell phone can be predicted in this way. We covered two of the most commonly used in HCI, Gomes and Fitts law. The next is bias. Bias occurs when the results are distorted. For example, expert evaluators performing a heuristic evaluation may be more sensitive to certain kinds of design flaws than others, and this will be reflected in the results. Evaluators collecting observational data may consistently fail to notice certain types of behavior because they do not deem them important. Put another way, they may selectively gather data that they think is important. Interviews may unconsciously influence responses from interviewees by their tone of voice, their facial expression, or the way questions are phrased. So it is important to be sensitive to the possibility of biases. The next is controlled experiment. A study that is performed in a laboratory which is controlled by the evaluator. Aspects controlled typically includes the task that participants are asked to perform, the environment in which the study occurs, and the amount of time available to complete the study. The next is crowdsourcing. This can be done in person, typically in citizen science of decades, or online via the web and mobile apps. Crowdsourcing provides the opportunity for hundred thousands or even millions of people to evaluate a product or take part in an experiment. The crowd may be asked to perform a particular evaluation task using a new product or to rate or comment on the product. Next is ecological validity. Ecological validity concerns how the environment in which evaluation is conducted influences or even distorts the results. For example, laboratory experiments are controlled and are quite different from workplace, home, or licensed environments. Laboratory experiments therefore have low ecological validity because the results are unlikely to represent what happens in the real world. In contrast, ethnographic studies do not impact the environment as much as, so they have high ecological validity. Ecological validity is also affected when participants are aware of being studied. Next is expert review or criticism. This is an evaluation method in which someone or several people with usability expertise and knowledge of the user population reviews a product looking for potential problems. Next is field study. A study that is done in a natural environment such as home as opposed to a study in controlled settings such as laboratory. A field study is not more appropriate because we want to investigate how people react to this new technology being placed in their natural environment. The methods could be used as a follows. Observation could be used for answering both questions and sub-question. This could be done by video or by a person making notes. Questionnaires and interviews could also be designed to collect data to answer these questions. Next is formative evaluation. An evaluation that is done during design to check that the product continues to meet users' needs. When evaluations are done during design to check that the product continues to meet users' needs, they are known as formative evaluation. Formative evaluation cover a broad span of design, from the development of early sketches and prototypes through to tweaking and perfecting an almost finished design, and then maintaining the product, which may involve several upgrades. Next is heuristic evaluation, an approach to evaluation in which knowledge of typical users applied, often guided by heuristics to identify usability problems. Heuristic evaluation is a usability inspection technique first developed by Jacob Nelson and his colleagues. Nelson in Walich, 1990. Nelson, 1994. In which experts guided by a set of usability principles known as heuristic evaluation, whether user interface elements such as dialog box, menus, navigation, structure, online help, etc. Confirm the principle. These heuristics closely resemble the high-level design principles and guidance. Example, making design consist reducing memory load and using terms that users understand. When used in evaluation, they are called heuristic. The original set of heuristic identified by Jacob Nelson and his colleagues was derived empirically from an analysis of 249 usability problems. The next is informed consent form. One significant aspect of any data gathering is a relationship between the person or people doing the gathering, and the person providing the data, making sure that this is relationship is clear and professional will help to clarify the nature of the study. One way in which this can be achieved is to ask participants to sign an informed consent form. The details of this form is vary, but it is usually asked the participants to confirm that the purpose of the data gathering or how the data will be used has been explained to them, and they are happy to continue. It also often includes a statement that the participants may withdraw at any time, and that in case none of their data will be used in the study. The informed consent form is intended to protect the interest of both the data gathered and the data provider. Next, in the wild study. This is a type of field study in which users are observed using products or prototypes within their everyday context. Field studies are research projects that are conducted outside of a lab or office settings in the actual environment of the user. There are many different activities and approaches that can be used during a field research. The researchers' interaction with participants in field studies are differ significantly. Living lab. This place is configured to measure and record people's everyday activities in natural settings, such as in the home. The next is predictive evaluation, an approach to evaluation in which theoretically based models are used to predict user performance. Next is reliability. The reliability is a consistency of a methods is how well it produces the same results on separate occasions under the same circumstances. Another evaluator or researcher who follows exactly the same procedure should get similar results. Different evaluation methods have different degrees of reliability. For example, a careful controlled experiment will have high reliability, whereas observing users in their natural settings will be variable. An unstructured interview will have low reliability. It would be difficult, if not impossible, to repeat exactly the same discussion. Next is scope. The scope of an evaluation study refers to how much its findings can be generalized. For example, some modeling methods like the keystroke model have a narrow, precise scope. The model predicts expert error error-free behavior. So, for example, the result cannot be used to describe novice learning to use the system. Next is summative evaluation. An evaluation that is done when the design is complete to assess whether it meets required standards such as those set by standards agency like NITS or BSI. Evaluations that are done to assess the success of finished product such as those needed to satisfy a funding agency that its money has been used well or check that a standard is being upheld are known as summative evaluations. Next is usability laboratory. Because the world is application software changes so rapidly, developers need to continually observe and test with users. Throughout the development phase, usability tests are carried out in Microsoft's usability lab. Each time a developer believes that a feature is finished, then it is scheduled for testing in the usability lab. Another issue to consider is how the user will be involved. The task user is usability laboratory study should be representative of those of for which the product is designed. Next is usability testing, an evaluation approach to evaluation that involves measuring users' performance and evaluating their satisfaction with the system in the question on certain tasks is a laboratory setting. Usability testing was the dominant evaluation approach in the 1980s and remains important, particularly at later stages of design for ensuring consistency in navigation structure, use of term, and how the system responds to the user. Usability tests involve measure typically users' performance on typically tasks. This is generally done by noting the number and kinds of errors that the user make and recording the time that it takes them to complete the task. And as the user performance this task, they are watched and recorded on video, and their interactions with the software are recorded, usually by logging input and output from the system. User satisfaction questionnaires and interviews are also used to elicit users' opinions. Usability testing has been particularly important for for the development of standard products that go through many generations such as word processing system, databases, and spreadsheets. In this case, the finding form a usability test are summarized in the usability specification so that developers can test future prototypes of versions of the product against it. Is user studies, an evaluation that involves user directly, either in their natural environment or the laboratory. Detailed user studies may also require the use of recording equipment and the subsequent cost of transcription and analysis. You Next is users or participants. In this context, these terms are used interchangeably to refer to people who take part of evaluation study. The last one is validity. Validity is concerned with whether the evaluation methods measures what is intended to measure. This encompasses both the method itself and the way it is performed. For example, the goal of the evaluation study is to find out how users use a new product in their homes, then it is not appropriate to plan a laboratory experiment. An ethnographic study in users' homes would be more appropriate if the goal is to find average performance task for completing a task than a method that only recorded in the number of user errors would be invalid.
Good day, I'm Glenn Charles Escueta and I'm gonna report about the participants' rights and getting their consent. Participants need to be told why the evaluation is being done, what they will be asked to do and inform about their rights. Informed consent forms provides this information and acts as a contract between participants and researchers. The design of the informed consent form The evaluation process, data analysis, and data storage methods are typically approved by a high authority such as the Institutional Review Board. Things to consider when interpreting data. Reliability. Does the method produce the same results on separate occasions? Validity. Does the method measure what it is intended to measure? Ecological validity. Does the environment of the evaluation distort the results? Biases. Are there biases that distorts the result? Scope. How generalizable are the results? Summary. Evaluation and designs are very closely integrated. Some of the same data gathering methods are used in evaluation as for establishing requirements and identifying users' needs, for example, observation, interviews, and questionnaires. Evaluations can be done in controlled settings such as laboratories, less controlled field settings, or where users are not present. Usability testing and experiments enable the evaluator to have a high level of control over what gets tested, whereas evaluators typically impose little or no control on participants in field studies. Different methods can be combined to get different perspectives. Participants need to be made aware of their rights. It is important not to overgeneralize finding from an evaluation.